Welcome to Deep Conversations Podcast, everybody. I am your host, and today we are in Dominican Republic. We're in Dominican Republic with Kairy Castro.
Yes.
I would say, by the look of the background, the number one florist.
I mean, I consider myself the best. I feel like everyone should consider themselves the best at whatever they do.
Right.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. There you go. So before we start, I want to start with where you grew up, and then I want to talk a little bit about your childhood. Tell us about your childhood.
Okay, I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I lived in Brooklyn until I was 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I went to school there. I didn't really know much outside of Brooklyn, apart from visiting family sometimes in the Bronx. Then I turned 19. I moved to the Bronx,
Mm-hmm.
which was very difficult to adjust. I learned that I had difficulty adjusting.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that about myself until then. But going back to my childhood, I'm the youngest of three sisters,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother was in New York by herself until I was 6 years old, and my dad was able to go to the States. What else can I say? I've always been creative, always. I remember being in school and teachers would like constantly tell my mom that I would daydream a lot and they were concerned. And I remember it like being a big deal at the time. Like
Hey.
my mom was worried because the teachers, it was constant year after year. Like your daughter is always daydreaming that it was almost like it wasn't okay. But
Yeah.
now though I'm like, I was just bored in a school that didn't cater to, someone like me or my way of learning.
And think about it too, because I really don't think that it's any child's way of learning. Can't there's let alone a child. I mean, even an adult, their attention span to something it's not going to be long, especially if it's something that's. Well, I'm be the first to say school ain't fun, man.
No, it's the way that the system is designed is not for everyone. It
Mm-hmm.
probably works for, a certain type of person, but it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't work for everyone. And it sucks because a lot of parents, or at least let's say my mother didn't know any better. So,
Mm-hmm.
I would get the talk constantly, but she couldn't understand that, maybe there was a different way for me to learn. And that way in particular wasn't helpful for me, or it wasn't allowing me to be who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I had to kind of like, stay in that box because otherwise it was an issue. And I remember being in third grade, they put me in math lab because I was behind in math.
Mm-hmm.
When I went to math lab, that teacher there, she was very creative in her way of teaching. So within a week, it was like, okay, now she's up to date, she's doing great. But I also didn't know any better that it was the teacher's way of teaching, obviously, until I became an adult. And I kept thinking about certain things because when things like that happen, that they're constantly calling your parent almost as if you're slow,
Mm-hmm.
or that you're not,
Mm-hmm.
that stays with you as you continue to grow. And luckily for me, when I went to high school, it was completely different. I went to the Williamsburg High School of Architecture and Design. So there, creativity was encouraged,
Mm-hmm.
different ways of learning, and the teachers there cared a lot about the students. So if they noticed that, something wasn't working for you, they would try something new. So that's when I started like to understand that there was different ways of teaching. There's different ways that people learn. And it was great. Like my high school years were great. My mother had no complaints. I did extremely well, graduated top three in the class. So I understood like, okay, I wasn't the problem. The
Mm-hmm.
system.
And it's funny you said that because I mean I've always said too. I'm like it's that kills your confidence, especially if like you said, the teachers keep calling, calling. And for you, it's like, I'm not no bad student. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not interrupting nothing. But you're telling me that I'm continuously having trouble. Then you start thinking in your mind, is something wrong with me? You know, and then it's funny too, because I had a teacher on the podcast a few months ago, and she was telling me, she said, "Do you know that the system has it that if a child can't read by the third grade, she said the system already has it lined up to by the time they get to high school, they're going to be in prison."
Right. And I have 3 daughters.
And I have a daughter.
My first daughter,
Mm-hmm.
I realized her way of learning. So I knew that if I put her, let's say, in a public school in New York,
Mm-hmm.
she would be evaluated, and she's very smart. She can have a conversation with anyone. She isn't shy. But I knew that as a parent, since she was like, before she turned 1, I already knew that.
Mm-hmm.
So when we moved here to the Dominican Republic, I was going to put her in a Catholic school.
Mm-hmm.
It was convenient. I didn't know of any schools, even though I'm Dominican.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Santiago, and I'm living in the capital, Santo Domingo. So I didn't know of any school. I didn't know anyone here that can recommend a school to me. So where we moved, there's a Catholic school in the corner. So I said, you know what, we'll just put her there. It's close by. And once they started evaluating her and I saw the way that they were doing things, I realized that if I put her there, it would be the same situation as any public school in New York.
Mm.
So the day that I went to make the payment, I still continued to do everything, the evaluation, the paperwork. And when I went to make the payment and sign the contract, I walked out. When they gave me the folder, I looked at it and I said, you know what, I can't put her here because I'm setting her up for failure.
Mm.
I walked out. It was already like August 28th. School was starting the following week. I didn't know where I was gonna put her. And so over that, I saw a school a couple of blocks away. We shouldn't go. And when I went there, I knew. I can't really explain it, but I just knew that they would cater to my child and different learning techniques. And she's been there this is the second school year there, and
Mm-hmm.
it's been great.
Yeah, and I think a lot of parents are kind of afraid to make that assessment, you know, about their child. I sometimes, because parents are like, my child can go anywhere and just learn, but you really gotta pay attention. This is why, in reality, that these kids are acting the way that they're acting, because they're frustrated. You know, the schools you're in school all day, you're frustrated, you feel in some kind of way, and then it's like these teachers are saying, "Oh, well, they're doing this in school. They're not learning this, and they're not learning it this way," and it's like, I don't know. It's like they're acting out for attention. You know what I'm saying?
They're acting out for attention, and they're also acting out because they're probably expressing to their parents how they feel, and the parents are only listening to one side. Mm-hmm. So you're already showing your child that their voice isn't heard. Mm-hmm. Even at home.
It's I don't know. I think it's almost something scary for a parent, almost like the parent doesn't know how to make that decision themselves, like you just did. You know what I'm saying? It's
right, but I don't blame parents either, because I feel like my mom did do the best that she could with what she did.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I can say that today because there was a point where I started to feel resentment towards my mother because it was almost like, why didn't you look for another school? Why didn't you put me in another school? But then again, my mother left from Dominican Republic to the States, her home. She doesn't know better. So she did what she could. And I had to understand. And it took a couple of years, you know, of me digging deep and allowing myself to feel how I felt, but also understanding she did what she could. And now you have to go on and make it better. You know, like, I know better, so I'm going to do better for my daughters.
And it's I don't know, it's something it's something when you have a child, because I have a daughter and I have a son. My daughter is, Lord, if she knew I paused on her how old she was. She's 12. Yeah, she'll be 12. She'll be 13, right? But I don't know. It's something when you have kids that it's like everything that you was doing prior to that. I mean, it's like immediate. It's like even in the hospital, it's like
You,
I can't do nothing. I mean, you really got to grow up. You know what I mean? It's like I can't do nothing that I was doing. The people that I'm hanging out with, I can't. Now that I got kids, I can't hang with nobody who ain't got kids now. So it's just everything changes.
I didn't really, everything does change, but I didn't really feel like I couldn't hang out with the people who didn't have kids
Mm-hmm.
because out of my friends, at least in my age group, because I do have older friends who had kids before me, I was the first one to have a kid.
Mm-hmm.
That never made me feel like because of that I couldn't hang out with them anymore. Yes, maybe I'm not as available. You can't
Mm-hmm.
just call me on a Friday night and I'm gonna
Yeah.
say, okay, I'll be here in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
That's not happening because obviously I need a babysitter.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, everything does change from for me, I didn't even fall in love with I can't say that I fell in love with my daughter the moment she was born or when I was pregnant. I didn't have that experience. Some women do, but that wasn't my experience.
That's real though. No, that's real that you
Absolutely.
said that because a lot of people won't say that.
Oh, I felt bad because I didn't know anyone who felt this way. My
Mm-hmm.
sister had kids, my cousins, all these people, and they were in love from the moment they found out they were pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was kind of like, wow, I'm not feeling what they felt.
Mm-hmm.
It's wrong. And then I remember one day I woke up, I was pregnant. I said, you know what? I'm not going to feel bad because I do feel like I care for the child
Mm-hmm.
that's inside of me, but I'm also not going to lie and say I'm so in love and X, Y, and Z when it's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't fall in love with my daughter at the hospital either.
Mm-hmm.
I was exhausted from being in labor for 48 hours. I was exhausted. I didn't have the mental capacity to
Mm-hmm.
like say, oh my God, I'm so in love with my child. But I do remember the day I felt that. And she was probably like a week or two old.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone had left. It was no family members in the house. Her dad had stepped out. And I had her on in one of the swings next to the couch.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm finally gonna like sit and there's all these people in here.
Why?
And my newborn was staring at me. And I remember I looked at her and I just started crying. Like I couldn't stop crying, but it was happy tears. And it just kept going. And I picked her up and it was like, wow, I kept looking at her. Then I kept crying. I'm like, okay, like this is what they were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That it's here. I'm feeling it. But it happened on my time.
See, and those are real emotions. You know what I mean? Sometimes I feel like people may feel like they can't express that way. You know what I mean? Because
People look at you funny.
yeah, I was see, and that's what I was going to ask you too. Because when I was reading your bio, you it was 21 when you had your child, right?
Yes.
You were 21 when you had your child, but you was kind of fresh. You was fresh just starting your business too.
I was. It was very fresh because I was in college and I was trying to do both, start my business and continue school because obviously that's what was expected of me to go to college. So I was trying to like make both parties happy, my parents and myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I was in school and I couldn't dedicate as much time as I wanted to the business,
Mm-hmm.
but I was doing at least one event every month or every 2 months.
So what did that was that was that little bit of extra motivation for you? I mean, knowing Because again, when I was reading your bio, a lot of people didn't think that you would be able to kind of continue to do it, or would kind of just it would just stop. Was that a little bit of extra motivation for you?
It was having my daughter, if it was more motivation or people not believing in me.
I mean, either one. I mean, either one. What was the most?
People not believing in me, it didn't really bother me
Mm-hmm.
because I was always judged. I, I was always into fashion. My hair was always done. My mother was a hairstylist, so like I was getting a blowout at 6:30 in the morning, so I can go to school. I was wearing red lipstick at 7 o'clock in the morning with some, like I didn't look. I looked a certain way, so people always thought I wasn't intelligent, and I never cared to prove anyone wrong or to change who I was. So it didn't bother me. Because I knew that if I started doing something just to prove something to someone else, at the end, when I accomplished it, it wasn't gonna really fulfill me because it was just kind of like to throw it in someone else's face. But having my daughter, that was different because now I had to show her that you can have kids and you can still follow your dreams. It may not be as easy, you may not have the same amount of time, but as cliche as it may sound, where there's a will, there's a way.
Mm-hmm.
I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning to work out before my daughter was up, to get work done on the computer before she was up, so that when she woke up, I was able to focus on her and also feel like I did something for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And doing it for myself makes me a better mother. So I always put myself before my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And it was important for my daughter to also understand that you cannot have fear. So when I had her, it was kind of like, you need to become fearless. Whatever you do, you give it your all. And it doesn't matter the outcome. As long as you know you gave it your all, that's it. And that's what I did. And I got the results I wanted.
Mm-hmm. I must say that I appreciate this transparency, because these emotions and stuff, and just the feelings that you saying you having, so many people just bottle that up and they won't say stuff like that. You know what I mean? Because again, they may feel like they're being judged by family, or they're trying to
or sometimes it just makes you feel better to not go the extra mile. So you coddle yourself. So you don't want to say it out loud, because then saying it out loud is almost like, okay, I'm saying this, but what am I going to do about it?
Mm-hmm.
When you put it inside, it also allows you to stay in your comfort zone. Because I had to step out of my comfort zone. Obviously, I was in situations that made me very uncomfortable because I wasn't used to that. But I would still, show up. I had never been to a networking event. I didn't know anyone who went to networking events. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, I was like, okay, so what are we going to do? I remember I started looking into becoming a real estate agent, just like trying to see what I can do, because I had somebody that was going to look up to me now. And I didn't just want to be the mom that was at home, and for that to be the only thing that my daughter would see.
I know. Yeah. See, and that's the same thing with me, because again, I found it interesting reading your bio, because some of the stuff it resonated with me too, because you were trying to figure out what you wanted to do. You know what I mean? So I want you to, if you had any, because I know I did, but jumping out of the regular 9-to-5 job situation and kind of going into the entrepreneurial route, did you have any fear of doing that?
No, and I think it's because my mom always had her own salon and she was her own boss. So for me, that was kind of like, I'm just not gonna go to school, but I can do it because she did it. So
yeah, see,
I wasn't scared to become an entrepreneur. and do my own thing.
I think, I think for me, I say that too because I had, I had kids, and I'm like, got my own spot, and I'm like, it's dependent on me. If I just decide right now, I'm done with just 9 to 5. You know what I'm saying? But this is how it worked for me. This is how I knew that me doing this and jumping into this, it was the right thing to do, because when all this COVID stuff was happening, it was either you were just going to become extremely lazy, or you was going to allow your creative mind to start working. So that's what it was for me. And I'll never forget it. In the beginning of 2022, in January, I was just walking around. I'm just walking around, just doing it. But I was saying, I'm talking to God, and I'm saying, I said, look, I know what I want to do now. I understand what I want to do, but I'm just going to put my head down and I'm going to work. I'm just going to work and work and work. And all I ask is just to get me out of this job by December 31st. And after that, I just wiped my hands of it. I ain't think about it no more. I just went on about my business. And
Have faith.
yeah. And as the year was going on, I'm just like, it would pop in my head. And I'm like, man, school's starting again, kids getting back in school. And I'm like, I don't know, ain't nothing really happening. You know what I mean? And one day in December 16th, I walked into work, and my boss was like, I gotta see you. At the end of the day, I want to talk to you. Or it wasn't December 16th. It was maybe a couple of days before that. But she said, I want to talk to you in the office at the end of the day. So I'm like, all right, I ain't think nothing of it. Went into the office, and she was like, December 16th gonna be your last day. I mean, the job is just, these jobs are just, we got to cut some people. So you're gonna be the one. And I started smiling, and she was looking at me. She was like, I thought you was gonna take that a little different. Right. And I was like, I said, nah, you don't even know what I had talked about way back when. And for me, it was just like, all right, I hear you now. You know what I mean? I hear you. So I'm gonna just go on this thing and do this thing. So I don't know. But now it's weird. I don't have no worries or stress about nothing now. I'm just, whatever happens is gonna happen.
That's, like I said, that's because you have faith.
Mm-hmm.
And at least for me, I always have faith in myself, but then certain things starts to happen in life, and you can lose your faith. And that happened to me. And when after I had my daughter, I took basically a year off. Mm-hmm. I wanted to dedicate like my child's first year to her. Mm-hmm. And I did. At the end, right before she turned 1, I started like looking for networking events again and trying to see like, okay, how I'm gonna get back in the loop, because I wanna work. I want more people to know about my events and my company. And I relaunched, after she turned 1, I focused on relaunching my company. Mm-hmm. Because when I was pregnant with her, one of my classes I never showed up to. I only showed up on the days of exams. And the professor, he pulled me aside, and I said, oh my God, he's gonna fail me for not showing up if you don't do well on these exams. Hey. That's what I thought. It was during the final. He said, when you finish, I would like to speak to you at the end. Wait for me outside. I'm like, damn, he's gonna fail me. But he did it. What he told me was, why are you in school and who are you doing it for? And I automatically said, I don't know, it's just, I would like to have a degree because I'm gonna have my own business, and I wanted to have a background in business management. And he told me, well, you don't need to be here to do that. You don't read the textbooks, and I know this because of the way that you respond. You're responding from what you know. What you need to do is find an event planning course and invest your money and your time there. And I remember like, it felt like such a relief. I'm like, okay, this sounds more like it, because going to school, even though I love learning, and now I miss it. It just, at that time, it didn't feel right. And it's because I wasn't doing it for myself. So I said, you know what? I ran with that. I'm like, okay, I canceled the next semester. Like, I was registered already. I went to the office the next day. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing this anymore. And everyone thought it was because I got pregnant. And I never cared to clarify that. Anyway, I knew it didn't matter what I said. You know, they already had made up their mind. Like, she got pregnant, she don't want to continue. Fine. So after she turned 1, I started looking into workshops and things like that. I couldn't find anyone that I felt I could take a workshop with and actually learn something. And so I came across a specific event planner. I said, okay, how much is it? I remember I didn't have the money. So I called my sister and I told her, can you lend me your credit card? Because I need the money for something. I also didn't know how I was going to pay her back, but I just knew I had to take that workshop and it had to be that day. I didn't want to wait for the next one. So my sister lent me her credit card. I took the workshop, ended up like everything the event planner was asking me, it made me go deep. So I ended up relaunching. I was Golden Events when I first started. And from that point, I transitioned to Kairy Castro Events, because one of the questions she asked was, why Golden Events? And it was also like, what do people remember about you? And honestly, people always remembered me. And her business was named after her. And she's like, sometimes we want to put all these names, but your name, you are the brand. And I was like, no, I'm not changing it. We're Golden. I think Golden Events, and that's what we're doing. The point of me telling you all of that was to tell you this. Eventually, I took the workshop. I continued to work on like behind the scene on the business. And then I relaunched as an event planner, because it was like, okay, now I feel like I'm on to the next level. I changed the name, like I changed the brand image. So when I relaunched, a lot of things began to fall apart in my personal life. So I started to lose my faith. And it was like, I started to question me based on other people's actions. And that led to me losing my faith completely. Then someone who's now one of my very good friends, I met her when I was pregnant at a networking event. She opened I don't even know what to call it, because the business was so much more than what we can put into words, but she opened a business in the Bronx and it was called Spiritually Sparkle. And I remember walking into her business before she had opened. She was like still fixing, there were boxes, and it was just, you walked in there and you just felt something that you couldn't explain. So I remember thinking, this is a gift for the community. But in reality, at the end of it all, it felt like it was a gift for me, because there I regained my faith with the services that she offered and just conversations that I would have for her when I would stop by to just sit there in the front with her. There I started to get my faith back. So I said all of that to say, when you have faith, things really just flow. It's unexplainable. And you have to have faith to understand when somebody talks about it. It just flows, and it's something that happens. It's very beautiful. Because you don't know.
And just how you just said, you was just like, it's very beautiful. It's a piece that you can't really explain to nobody. It's just like, you're just in a place of just calmness and just like you said, it just flows. It just
flows, and some people know.
I know. Yep. It is. And I want to, because you said you're Dominican, right? So,
Yeah.
everybody talks about a sweet 16, but in the Spanish household, it's a quinceañera. Okay. And that's almost like a wedding. It's like such a big event. My daughter is half Spanish. She's half Puerto Rican. So it's I've been around, I've seen these, you know what I mean? And they're, to me, I'm like, these are like beautiful. You know what I'm saying? But for you, I read that, you know, when your mom was doing that for you, that's when you kind of fell in love with the event planning part.
Yes. So I used to watch David Totera on TLC. Like I was there, every episode. I always loved events. I just never really, I had never personally met an event planner. So it was like one of those things that you saw on TV and that was it. I never thought of it. But when my mother hired an event planner for my Sweet 16, I was very involved and I knew what I wanted. Like the vision, I had it. And I was telling the event planner, like this, that. And I don't want to take away because I've said this story before and people kind of take away from the work that she did.
Mm-hmm.
I loved my Sweet 16. You know what I'm saying? I loved it. But did I feel that I would do a better job? I also felt that. And I have to be honest, that's what I felt. But that's what pushed me to go into that. So my brother-in-law's dad he had a nonprofit organization in the Bronx. And he offered event planning courses. It was more event decor. It wasn't planning. We never went into planning, but event decor. And I remember I signed up for one. So I was 16 years old, taking the train to the Bronx from Brooklyn. I believe it was every Monday. Late at night, I was getting home 10:30 at night, but I wanted to do it. So I did it. I got a certificate. I didn't do anything with it. I was still in high school, but it was there. And what I did do was like my niece's birthday parties with my sisters. So it was the start of something.
Yeah, see, and it's, listening to you, you've always had it. I guess you was just, and I guess it comes from family too. You just have that hustle gene. You know what I mean? It's in you. You know what I mean? And now, you having you said 3 daughters now.
I have 3 daughters.
That hustle is like at an all-time high now, ain't it?
It is, but I also feel like everything happens when it needs to happen. And family is very, very important for me. So I've missed very important holidays and certain things with my first daughter because I was working, and I started to realize that even though I love what I do, that feeling of, showing up late on Christmas Eve, I didn't want my daughter to feel like her parents were the ones not there. So I'm at a point in my life now where I do what I can as long as it doesn't take away from them. And I know that as they get older, I'm going to do more. And, it takes a lot for you to become okay with that when you're someone like, because I like to work. I love it because that caters to my creative side. And I need to nurture my creative side one way or another, because if not, I'm not the best mom.
Yeah.
So right now, it's just we doing what we can, and understanding that I still have many, many more years to do what I want to do.
Mm-hmm. What would Kairy today say to young Kairy?
It has a lot. Let me see. You are more than enough.
Mm.
No matter what anyone says, you are more than enough.
You know, it's I like to ask these questions, and you know, and I usually I ask, you know, a lot of people these questions because I I'm starting to see, you know, our generation. I'll be 39, right? But I'm starting to see that our generation, when we were growing up, we really we kind of it was almost taught of kind of like you just hold a lot of stuff in. So now that we got older, it's we're more expressive. You know what I mean? And it's
I always get in trouble for that though.
see, and there you see what I'm saying. And it's yeah. You're right. We got in trouble
I
for that
always got in trouble for saying things as they were.
because we was always told the child got to stay in the child's place, and it's when you say that to a child, you're you kind of diminish their worth a little bit. You know what I mean? Because it's like, huh? Like you
And
telling
I
me
don't
that,
want to, because I also there's that, and I don't want to encourage that where so much freedom of speech in a child
oh yeah, yeah,
as well. So
yeah. I know.
I, as a parent, I feel like we need to know the balance and also teach our kids like, okay, you can feel that, you can think that, but it doesn't mean that you have to say it.
Yeah.
With my 7-year-old, we're constantly going back and forth about that particular topic because she's very expressive and I love it. I mean, I created that. She did that because she was 1 year old and I was asking her like, do you want to wear that? Do you want to do that? And to a lot of people, that's like, oh my God, by the time she's 16, she's gonna beat you up. And no, you teach your kids to have a voice from when they're young with small decisions. So they're able to make bigger decisions and they're able to be outspoken in uncomfortable situations when they're adults and they don't, in the workplace, I never stood shut. I didn't care if you were the boss. If you disrespected me, we were going to talk about it.
Yeah, the job is not that important for you to disrespect me. Yeah, and it's my daughter again. She's 12, so she's at the age where I'm learning. I'm learning with her. You know what I mean? Because it's I grew up with it's four boys of us. You know, me and my brothers. So it's like it's four of us. So it's never had a sister. I always wonder. I'm like, I wonder what it'd be like if I had a sister. But then I'm like, nah, I don't think that would have been good because four boys. It would have been miserable for her.
Maybe not.
You know what I mean? But now with my daughter, I'm learning with her because I'm like, she's learning her. She's at the stage where she's learning herself, her body, and all. You know, she's going through these different changes, and I'm like, I always tell her, I'm like, don't ever feel uncomfortable to talk to me about anything. You know what I mean? Whatever it is, just come to me and say what you need to say, even if it's, you know, she's going through her, every monthly thing, and I'm like, even if it's uncomfortable for me, just just say it. You know what I mean? Just yeah, just talk about it. But also that comes with a lot of again, she's learning herself, so it's coming with a lot of frustration and it's coming with a lot of, you know, anger because she's learning about everything. So she's kind of snippy sometimes. And sometimes I'm like, girl, but I again, I'm learning too. So I'm like, right? You ain't got to go through this. This ain't nothing you got to go through. So we learning together. It's a woo.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot, but I think that when we're open to learning with our kids,
Mm-hmm.
it changes everything.
Mm-hmm. And it teaches you it teaches you about yourself, and that really kind of is going to the next question I was going to ask you. What has life taught you mentally and spiritually about yourself?
This is a really good question because I've never really sat down to think about where life has taught me.
Mm-hmm.
But I think something that I have learned throughout the years is to not change who I am at the core, no matter what I go through. Because when we do that, we lose who we are. We lose ourselves. And that's so much worse than anything we can, it's so much worse than anything we can go through in life.
Mm-hmm.
You feel that you've lost who you were, that you don't know that person anymore because you're reacting out of anger and revenge.
Yeah, my grandfather, I never understood it when he used to tell me when I was younger, but I understand it now. I mean, it's like it's so it's like it's when I hear it, when I think about it, I'm like, man, he told me over 100 times, but it's now, I know, he's gone now, but I'm like, he used to always say, um, don't be chasing ghosts, because what I would do was when I was younger, growing up, again, I was learning myself, trying to figure out but I would be going out hanging with people who I ain't had no business hanging with. You know what I mean? It was just because I wanted to feel, I don't know, maybe I wanted to feel cool. You know what I'm saying? But it was like now that I'm older and him saying it, I'm like, man, I was, again, messing around, losing yourself, because it's like you chasing something that's not even, you think it's something cool over there. Ain't nothing over there, but you just, it's and that's something I always say. I'll be saying to myself that I would tell my younger self, slow down. You know
That
what I
too.
mean? It's like just slow down. You ain't got to be in a rush to do much. You ain't got to do, just slow down. I always thought, now that I got bills and all of this stuff, I thought it was so hard being a kid.
Mm. It is hard though. It is so
No, it
hard
is.
that it's very valid that we feel that way
Mm-hmm.
when we're kids because like sometimes you trying to express something to your parent, you get shut down, you have
Yeah,
an idea, and it's like, oh
yeah.
no, no. So you like, is it good enough or what? It is hard being a kid, and
No,
I would
yeah.
say this day and age is so much more difficult than it was for us because of the social media exposure. Anything that you do, somebody recorded it, and it's gonna stay with you.
And
With
they're exposed to so much.
whatever happened in middle school,
Mm,
stood in middle school unless someone went to the same high school as you.
mm.
Now, before you get there, somebody probably seen you on the internet and whatever it was that happened.
God, I be saying to myself, I'm like, I'm so glad I came up in dial up and not all this. Everything is so instant now. It's just,
And something I've learned about myself spiritually is to control my thoughts because whatever I focus on becomes a reality. And sometimes not always my thoughts are the most positive. And that can make shifts happen that didn't need to happen.
see what I'm saying? This is what I mean. This is what I said earlier about you. I appreciate you being so transparent, because these are all thoughts people actually have, and maybe they happen so frequent that they really don't pay attention to them anymore. So it's just, it just comes and goes, and it's just like, oh, that's just the way I think. No, you got to really think about how you
have to be open to, because when we're going through specific things, God, whoever's listening to this, whoever you believe in, they have a way of basically getting you through those things, whether it be they send a specific person into your life, something even you see while you're scrolling on social media. So I've had guidance. I've always been who I am. Right? I always say this. I think it's important to say this. I've always been who I am at the core, and I know that. But I'm also open when people give me advice. It doesn't mean that I run with everything that they tell me, but I listen. And whatever, resonates with me, I apply it in my life. And you truly have to have open eyes, ears, and heart.
No.
And then you're able to be transparent with yourself.
I think that is what you said. For me, it's funny you said that, because I'm like, as we talking, I feel like I'm talking to myself sometimes, because listening to you, because I've said that to so many people. I'm like, for me, I appreciate constructive criticism. For me, for the things that I do, because again, it's something that's necessary to be said. You know what I mean? If it's something just nonsense, I'm wise enough to just, that's just it's just stupid. Yeah, it's like you just saying stuff just to be. It doesn't matter. But if something, like you said, resonates, I'm completely fine with what people have to say, because it's, I don't know. Me being young and going through the things that I went through, I feel like I have like really, really tough skin. You know what I mean? And it's like certain things is just.
I feel that way too, because I'm open about things. I just won't say who. Right now, like now I'm going to tell you something, but I just won't say who is the person, because I don't want to, invade their privacy, and whoever knows both of us to basically connect the dots. But someone very close to me experienced domestic violence. And I was like probably 10 years old, that I remember, probably younger. And even though I wasn't the one experiencing that, that person is very dear to me. And never realized the way that it impacted me until I got into a serious relationship with my partner. And if I didn't have, I don't like to use the word tough skin, because I felt every emotion either way. Maybe I didn't show it to people, but I felt those things. It marked me, and it didn't change me, but it marked me. And then someone else that's very, very close to me and has, had a very big impact in my life, suffered from mental illness. And that also affected me a lot with my relationships. And that's why I say, like, I don't allow what I go through to change me, because if I did, I would be a complete different person than I did.
See, again, I feel like I'm, when you're talking, I feel like these are the same things, because I remember being maybe 11 or 12, but I was at a friend of mine's house. Me and him we were just hanging out outside, and it's the first time I've ever seen domestic violence in my life. You know what I mean? So I'm over his house, and my mother and my father, I've never seen that. They've been married now for 42 years. They've known each other since they were 14. I've never seen nothing like, it's always just been love. So me being there, and we outside playing, his mom comes outside and she's like, what do you want to eat? Talking to her husband. He's working on the car. And she's like, did you hear me? What do you want to eat? I mean, and just quick, he jumped up. You don't see me talking, you don't see me doing this. I just fix whatever you're gonna fix. And I was just like, my friend, I guess he's used to it. So he's just doing what he's doing. But for me, I'm like, oh, this ain't right. You know what I mean? So I'm like, I'm still running around, but I'm looking because I'm like, something, that energy a little off. And she came out, walked up to him and was like, I'm just asking you what you want to eat, so I can go in and cook. I know you're gonna be hungry after you doing this. At this time I stopped and I'm just looking. I mean, they stared at each other for 5-10 seconds. I mean, he just boom, punched her right in, and she didn't move. She just sat there. And I was like, and like you said, it didn't happen to me, but I mean, I'm talking about it now. It's like I'm 38. It's still like, when I think about it, I'm like, that's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, and to this day, I mean, for me, friends and, who are females or everything, it's like, they know the domestic violence and all that with me. Nah, don't.
Right.
That's like, don't tell me nothing about it.
Experience it like that firsthand
Mm-hmm.
to see it happen, but I saw the damage, the aftermath of it, time after time. So that was difficult because I didn't want to take anything from anyone. Like, I was ready to walk away all the time.
Yeah.
And like for the smallest thing, until, one day my partner's like, yo, the next time you tell me that, like, that's it. We've really done, because you can't do that. And then, I had to like think about it. Why do I continue to do that? Because then I'm saying, that's not a reason for you to walk away from a relationship. And that's when I started to notice how that impacted me, because I didn't know that.
See, and I have I got some ideas for some podcasts coming up, and what I want to do, I want to start having some podcasts with some panels, and I do, if you're free, you know what I mean, because I think these are necessary, having some.
I love that, and you see, the same way you said that things started to line up for you.
Mm-hmm.
To leave that job. And the fact that you're even mentioning that to me, it's just, I'm having that moment where you're like, okay, well, you got fired, but hey.
Yeah.
Before I was asked if I would, want to do this podcast now, it was just there. I kept saying, I would love for people to get to know me, who I am, not Kairy the mom, not Kairy the one that's always dressed up and, posting outfits or flowers. And I wanted to start a podcast for a long time. I keep saying that, but I don't do it. Why I don't do it, I don't know, because I'm not going to say it's because of the time, because it's not. But, the fact that you say that, I would definitely love to do that, because I do want more people to get to know who I am and, just things I've experienced that have made me who I am.
This was so much fun. But what before we go, what's your social media handle so people can
on social media, it's Kairy Castro Flower with the Y at the end. I have a website as well, kairycastro.com. On my website and on my Instagram, you'll be able to see some of my work. You would also be notified of pop-up shops that I do, events that I do. I have a pop-up shop coming up now in May for Mother's Day. And I also have an event. It's a mommy and me event where there's bonding through floral arrangement. That's going to be in New York. So all of those details are going to be on the site and on my Instagram, more or less sometime this week, as far as the dates and times.
All right, cool. Yeah. So we going, yeah. Yeah, so we definitely going to I don't know if I don't know if I started following you yet or not. I might have my mind. I did. I was getting ready to say I'm getting a little older. My mind don't remember stuff like it used to. So yeah, so we definitely look. We definitely you definitely need to be looking for some messages and stuff because we're gonna be reaching out and we're gonna be connecting real soon.
Right.
But I appreciate you again for jumping on.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity too.
You're on YouTube, baby.